Welcome back to American Agenda. I'm Bob Sellers.
And I'm Heather Childers. A police department canine officer served a 10-year prison sentence for a civil rights violation after her dog bit a fleeing burglary suspect. Officer Stephanie Mohr released her dog when the suspect refused police commands to lie down and made an attempt to escape. Well, the Law Enforcement Legal Defense Fund is trying to secure a presidential pardon for her as the incident has drastically, as you would imagine, impacted her life. And joining us now to tell her story is former Prince George's County canine officer Stephanie Mohr. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me.
You know, take us back through your story briefly, just so people who are not aware of it. I mean, I wasn't, and I was reading the background on this. You had a 2-year-old child at home at the time when this happened. You were only 24 years old and still training as an officer. Tell us what transpired this particular night. It was what, September of 1995?
Correct. The incident for which I was charged and convicted happened September 21st, 1995. I was a young, brand new police canine handler riding with my police training officer. We were called to the scene of a nighttime commercial burglary. I used my dog to make an arrest. It was a by-the-book arrest. The suspect suffered 10 stitches in his calf. There were no complaints by either suspects. My department had no issue with the arrest or the use of force that was used that night. And much to my surprise, 5 years later, one day before the statute of limitations was to expire, my training officer and I were indicted for that incident. At the time, my son was very young. When I left for prison, he was 3 years old. When I got home from prison, he was 12. I went through not only one trial, but 2 trials. I maintained my innocence. I testified on my own behalf in the first trial. The jury acquitted me of one charge and hung me 11-1 in favor of acquittal on the remaining charge. And in an unprecedented movement, the Department of Justice and the federal government elected to retry me and my training officer. The first trial, the government stuck solely to the facts of the case, and they were unable to secure a conviction. In the second trial, they veered far from the facts of the case and basically went on to do a character assassination of myself. And my training officer was acquitted, and I was the only one convicted. I was sentenced to 10 years in prison, 10 years for a dog bite, 10 years for using a tool that I was trained to use, 10 years for doing my job according to my training and education, 10 years for doing my job according to the standard operating procedures of my department at the time and the prevalent police practices of the time. Using a canine in that capacity was widely used throughout the region at the time.
And so people understand, Stephanie, and by the way, thank you for your service. And it's clear here that something else was up, that you did your job, and that most of us would be proud to have that work done by an officer like yourself to ensure our safety in the community. It turned into a political issue, didn't it? It turned into something that local officials wanted to make a civil rights issue, and that's why they went this route. And like you were describing, this was really against all odds. They seemed to have something driving them that had nothing to do with the good job you did, which is why the Fraternal Order of Police are asking for you to be pardoned, even though, folks, she's already served the time in prison. Right, Stephanie?
That's correct. And there was definitely an agenda at the time that was fueled by the state's attorney for Prince George's County at the time and the U.S. attorney at the time. And that agenda, in part, was fueled by the Washington Post and some very liberal reporting. I was definitely made a scapegoat. I served my entire sentence. My son was 3 when I went to prison, 12 years old when I got home. It's been 9 years since I've been home from prison. And it's Thanksgiving just wrapped up. We're in the middle of the Christmas holidays, and it takes me back to all the Christmases and all the Thanksgivings and all the holidays I missed with my son. And I can never get that back, but I firmly believe that a pardon can provide some sense of justice for me.
And you have a I was just going to say, you have a lot of support, Stephanie, as well. The Law Enforcement Defense Fund, there are about, what, at least at this point, 30,000 people coming to your defense, also saying that you deserve this pardon. How can people help you out?
The Law Enforcement Legal Defense Fund can be found at leldf.org, and they have created a petition that people can sign online. Over about 30,000 people have already signed it, and it's a petition that we are sending to President Trump. People can write letters on my behalf to President Trump. If there's anyone who may know President Trump or be inside his inner circle, I would just humbly appeal to them and to President Trump that please review my case. And justice has not. It would be a fitting end to what has been a 25-year-long saga for myself and for my family.
We only wish we could give you that 10 years back. And so we are so sorry for what happened to you. And this is the least that seems to be owed to you.
Yeah. And perhaps President Trump is listening himself right now, Stephanie. So hopefully he heard what you had to say.
I appreciate this opportunity. Thank you so much, and happy holidays. Merry Christmas.
Thank you so much. And as Bob said, thank you for your service.
You just watched Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news channel, now in more than 70 million homes. You can get Newsmax TV on your cable system or check your cable guide. And if your system doesn't carry Newsmax, call them, tell them you want Newsmax TV, because we're real news for real people.